Welcome back, folks. Today we are diving deep into the 2024 housing market. So, buckle up, Buttercup, because we are about to explore whether it's the perfect time to buy your dream home or if it's best to wait it out. Now, let's kick things off with why 2024 might not be the best time to buy a house. First and foremost, we are witnessing some turbulence in the housing market from global economic uncertainties to potential geopolitical tensions. There's this big dark cloud of uncertainty that is hovering over real estate as it has for quite some time now. Moreover, interest rates have been elevated for over a year now, which means that mortgages are still pricier than in years past. And if you're working within a tight budget, trying to secure a mortgage now could end up straining your finances more in the long run. So while they have come down a bit from their highs, the interest rates are still high compared to previous artificially low rates that we all experienced that caused the housing market run up in the first place. So if you are not in a good position financially, maybe your job is on the bubble or your debt is out of control, if any of these things apply to you, then no time is ever going to be a good time to buy a house. You do need to get your financial house in order before you even think about buying a home. You need reserves because homes don't fix themselves and stuff always ends up happening, especially here in Texas, it seems. We just had to get our own roof replaced because of a recent hailstorm, and that ended up leading to needing to have the house painted, and that was thousands of dollars out of our own pocket, even with our deductible. Not to mention, we finally had to get the AC repaired, and a couple of years ago, we had to replace our water heater. So if maybe $5,000 or more would put you in a bad position financially to where you need to decide about doing the repairs or maybe feeding your family, please don't buy a home. You should probably just focus on getting things tightened up financially and putting away some reserves in an emergency fund. So go right ahead and rent and focus on saving and paying down your debts. But what if you are in a good position financially or you did decide to sell your house? You could be sitting on a big fat stack of cash to put down for a down payment on your brand new house. Well, right now, there's a little bit of a problem. The available homes on the market are at recent lows. So even if you did sell your home, you then have the challenge of being able to hopefully buy a new home to buy. And oh, yeah, your interest rates are likely double or more what you were paying on your last house. Now, the lock-in effect many current homeowners are experiencing is causing a huge housing shortage, especially here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. A lot of sellers just can't afford to sell and buy a new house. We've actually thought about this ourselves. We are currently locked in with a 2.9% 30-year fixed loan, and even though our home has doubled in price since we've owned it, our new payment would jump up significantly even if I bought a very similar house. And let's face it, nobody's going to move unless it's an upgrade for more money than you sold your home for usually. But of course, unless life happens and you need to sell due to some life-changing event. Now, what if you want to buy a new house, but you have concerns that maybe things in the economy or the housing market could collapse? Well, that's what we are going to look into in this particular video today. What are the actual prospects for real estate here in Dallas in 2024? Now, looking at the forces that are likely to affect home supply and values pretty much anywhere in the country, there's four main factors that will determine how this year could play out. Those are jobs, inflation, interest rates, and legal and geopolitical issues. So we're going to dive into each one of them and then share what some of the experts are advising, which will hopefully give you some better information that helps answer whether 2024 will be a good time to buy or not. All right, and before I get into all of the fun details, my name is Kristen Carpentier, a local realtor here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So if you have any questions about this particular video or you want more information about moving to Dallas, Texas, go ahead and reach out at that number down below. And if you like this content, please consider giving it a thumbs up so that others can find it as well. And as always, don't be shy. Leave comments down below because you may be able to shed some light as well on this topic that could end up helping somebody else. All right, so first up, let's talk about jobs. Now, why is the jobs market important for home prices? Well, without a very important job or some sort of income, then you can't really afford to buy a house or even to pay your rent. So depending on what side of the coin you think that it will land this year, for heads maybe, there is an impending recession coming with huge layoffs that may collapse the economy, or maybe tails. The employment outlook is strong and no reason to foresee large spread layoffs. So if the coin comes up heads, then all bets are off on the housing market, and this would likely cause inventories to rise. And if the inventory floods the market too quickly, the prices could collapse. So, what is the likelihood of that? Not very high, as you will see here very soon. But barring some of the unseen events, then it won't really end up mattering much anyway. But the indicators do look more like tails if we look at the facts that are out there. Now let's look at DFW and how our employment horizon looks. The most recent report from the Texas A&M Real Estate Research Center, DFW Housing Market Report back from December of 2023, they discussed the economic news in the area. And they quoted the latest numbers from the Texas Workforce Commission, which indicated that jobs increased from 4.22 million to 4.36 million. Now, that marked a 3.18% year over year increase compared to December of 2022. And roughly a net 134,200 jobs were created in the past year here in the DFW area. And over the past 5 years, DFW job growth rates have increased an average of 3% per year. They did note that the unemployment rate did increase from 3.1% to 3.3%. Now, if we're looking at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, they also seem to support the employment numbers in the market, and DFW is healthy and growing as it was number one compared to the 12 top metropolitan areas year over year as of November 2023. And unemployment rates are lower than the national averages at 3.3% here in DFW compared to 3.5% throughout the entire rest of the country. Now, in another study that was done by Texas A&M, the multifamily housing forecast is for there to be less apartments constructed and rents to increase by an estimated 2.5% in the state of Texas. They noted that in Texas, there are 2.5 million units of multifamily housing or apartments, or one for every 11 residents in the state. And just for DFW, it's even tighter than that. So there are no indications currently that jobs will cause a flood of inventory to hit the market. Actually, the opposite is happening here. As net immigration to Texas continues, thus housing shortages will continue as well. Now, in just simple supply and demand here, while new construction homes will help alleviate some of the housing shortage, there are not enough homes being built to offset the shortage for all of the new people that are moving into the state. Now, inflation has been making a pretty steady trend down since the highs that we were experiencing. By looking at the Consumer Price Index, as of January 2024, we are at 3.1%, which is not to the Fed's goal of about 2%. However, this is way down from June of 2022, where that hit 9.1%. And as you likely know, inflation is going to play a huge role in the Fed's monetary policies, namely the cost of borrowing. They will raise these rates when they want people to quit spending and buying things. And while it's not an exact in the mortgage market rates, it places a huge factor in what your mortgage rate will be. So as long as inflation remains on its downward trajectory, heading to the Fed's goal, the assumption is that the Feds will begin lowering rates at some point coming up this year. All right, now the third thing that I do want to address is going to be the interest rates. The indications from the Fed are that they are happy with the drop in core inflation numbers and that an easing in rates may be warranted this year sometime. So the question is, by how much and how fast is that going to happen? Many experts are not expecting large cuts by the Fed this year. Now, in a Forbes article that was posted in January, they indicated that the Fed doesn't see any urgent reason to cut rates right now. The most likely scenario is maybe a quarter of a point in the June-July 2024 meeting, and maybe a quarter of a point 2 or more times towards the end of 2024, with the final position being about 2% on short-term interest rates. They also noted the mortgage rates are a bit more complex, and they do have a twist this time, since mortgage-backed securities are worried about prepayment risk due to people refinancing when mortgage rates dropped, causing short-term rates to be higher than long-term rates. But they do indicate that this will work itself out over time and likely bring mortgage rates down to hopefully about 6%. They did also note that uncertainty about interest rates is high and should be taken pretty much with a grain of salt. So do with it what you will. Now, if we look at the St. Louis Federal Reserve, the FOMC summary of economic projections for the Fed funds rate, the chart does indicate that by 2025, we could be down about 3.6%, which is a full point lower than the January 2024 number of 4.6%. So, what does this mean for housing here in little old Dallas, Texas? Since I'm truly immersed in the market here, I really am speaking with clients all the time. Many people are chomping at the bit to buy homes here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm getting calls all the time, not only from people who are looking to relocate here to the Dallas area, but people who are wanting to invest in the real estate market as well. Now, right now, though, it still is a bit uncomfortable for some people to make that commitment with all the uncertainty that is out there. But much like the stock market rallies, it often is too late once the buyer starts stepping in. The momentum that is out there, it starts to get really frantic, and we'll be back in the bidding wars that we have seen in the past, which is really what my expectation is going to be for the future here of 2024. So it does go back to, are you in a good position to buy? If you are, then sooner may be a better time than later, unless you are okay paying tens of thousands of dollars more for a home here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But again, that is if we see rates dropping and the economy not taking a turn for the worse for some reason. Now, last on the list are legal and geopolitical issues. This last factor is out of our control and kind of an unknown about what may arise over the next year. If there are no major wars, pandemics, or crazy legislation that upsets the markets, natural ebb and flow that we do hope for, then this should play no factor in the housing market. We have an election year this year as well, and markets tend to perform better in those years. So this may give it a boost to our economy and our housing market as well. There have been several state legislatures that have been attempting to pass legislation to limit an investor's ability to purchase homes and make it harder to do so. This was a big reason for a lot of the appreciation as these corporations were buying single family homes at elevated prices and causing the average first time home buyer to be shut out since they couldn't end up paying cash for a house. So I do recommend keeping an eye on that. All right, so let's talk about some predictions as we wrap this up by looking at the National Association of Realtors outlook at a national level. The NAR nationally is indicating that it believes inventory will continue to decline by about 14%, that the interest rates will remain high, which they estimate to be about 6.8%, which would be a slight decline from last year, which will not help with inventory, as sellers would not be very motivated to step out of their low interest rates. And for home prices, they do indicate about a 1.7% decline in 2024, which may help some of the buyers that are out there. Now, of course, this is their national forecast, and we all know that Texas is its own beast. Texas A&M released their 2024 forecast recently for the state of Texas. And while they cover most real estate asset classes in the article, we noted a few highlights for the single family housing. Now, the forecast. Single family new construction homes will increase in 2024 with almost 4% growth from last year, which will match pre-COVID levels, which may help a little bit with our supply issues. Prices in the state overall are predicted to remain flat or at most dip slightly. And rents are expected to fall in single family homes, continuing with the 2023 trends. Sales have not bottomed out, and total sales are expected to remain fairly flat. Due to lower interest rates for at least part of 2024, that may boost the sales somewhat, and new construction is expected to account for a larger than average share of total sales at about 20% here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And if we are looking at historic trends over the past decade, which of course the last few years are the exception to the rule, now that we are entering the spring buyer cycle, and especially if there is a hint of rates dropping, we could see appreciation from January to June of almost up to 10%. Then things will likely soften after that into 2025, but likely not giving back all of what it gains in the spring if the buyers come out of the woodwork. People are still moving here to Dallas. We still get calls all the time from people still planning to make that move here because they want to relocate to the Dallas, Texas area for a number of different reasons. So unless our supply increases, prices will continue to rise in all likelihood this year. Then come next year, things could really take off again as the rate cuts and shadows over the economy begin to clear up. All right, so I know many of you are wrestling with the decision on whether you should buy or sell a home. And hopefully this has shed a little bit of light on the subject that we have out there. So if you have any questions at all about our real estate market, please reach out. That's what we're here to do, is to help you make those decisions. And until next time, take care.